In a world of 350 billion movie podcasts, two chumps have decided that now is the time for cult movies to engage in combat. Disagreements will be had, blood may be spilled, and voiceover artists most definitely will not be paid. This is Cult Film Face-Off.
Hello and welcome to episode 15 of Cult Film Face-Off. With me, as always, Chet Roivas.
Hello.
And I am Nick Leonard. Thank you, Dangleberries, a.k.a. Junker Dem, for tweeting in and suggesting this week's pairing. Two films we're going to be looking at are from the Comic Strip Presents series, which were a series of films using the best in alternative British comedy talent in the 1980s, regularly featuring the likes of Rick Mayall, Adrian Edmondson, Dawn French and Jennifer Saunders. First up, we take a look at the Supergrass. While holidaying in Cornwall, Dennis concocts a wild story to impress a girl at a pub. Little does he know that this story will land him in deep, deep trouble with the law. The Supergrass.
Very stupid or very, very clever. You know the meaning of the term Queen's evidence?
You mean like a supergrass?
So I'm sending you and another police officer along with him.
Who?
Nice girl, policewoman Leslie Reynolds. Do you know her? What have you done with it?
Haven't they touched it?
Do that again, I shall take you out to sea and drown you.
Is it drugs?
It's none of your business.
How'd you get into plain clothes?
Someone sees a squeezy bottle out in the ocean and thinks, hello, there's £500,000 tied to it. A bit unlikely, wouldn't you say?
Yes, very unlikely.
I've had enough of this. That little swine calls me hard one more time.
When is this boat coming? Look, I know this sounds unconvincing. It's all been a big mistake!
So, the Supergrass. Had you seen it? What are your initial thoughts?
Well, I hadn't seen it before. It's one of those things that I always saw on a video shelf when I was a kid at the video store, and my brain did that calculation, the idiotic calculation. I thought, oh, it's on video, it must be quite good. And it's not quite good at all. I mean, you hadn't seen it either.
I'd never seen it, but the same as you. I remember seeing it in video shops, and I think it's the only comic strip film that is actually a feature film.
Yeah, it's officially, yeah. I mean, it was shot for TV, and they basically elongated it, so it's... And that's what it feels like, to be honest. But yeah, it's the only theatrically released comic strip film.
There's a huge amount of padding in this film.
It exactly feels like a sort of 45-minute TV episode, sort of stretched out to feature length. I mean, Adrian Edmondson's quite good. I mean, considering that his repertoire consists basically of yelling.
It's quite refreshing to see him in a role where he isn't using his Vivian or Eddie from Bottom's voice.
Yeah. He's quite restrained, which was quite refreshing. Yeah, I agree. And
also, he kind of looks a bit dashing.
Yeah,
in a way, a bit suave. You know, he kind of looked the part.
Yeah, I agree. There were initially things that I found amusing. I think the way the plot starts in what normally would have been a convoluted sting operation. He tells a lie, essentially, to himself, and then immediately a policeman turns up and says, right, you're going to jail, which is quite a funny setup for a film. Did you notice he was arrested by two policemen, Michael Elphick and another actor? Did you recognise that other actor?
No.
Okay, his name's Patrick Durkin.
Yeah.
He's got over 100 credits on IMDb. He's passed away now, but he had quite a varied career. Primarily it was bit parts and stuff, but his face is forever burned in my memory because he's the guy that gets out drunk by Karen Allen at the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark when they're having that drinking contest.
Oh, fuck, right.
Yeah, as soon as I saw his face,
I know, it rang a bell, but I couldn't picture where I knew him from.
Yeah, that was him. And then again, in terms of things that were amusing, after that, a Scotland Yard detective is introduced who it's explained later, but initially they don't explain why he's just dressed as Dracula. Seems kind
anarchic.
Yeah, at least I can understand it recognisably as a joke. There is the odd good line of dialogue, but overall it's really strained and really desperate. I mean, I think the nadir of the film is a bit where Alexei Sayle pulls them over as like a motorcycle cop, and he starts prancing around to illustrate that they're driving on the wrong side of the road, and then all of a sudden he plays the role of the needy underling who's looking for career advice. Really obvious stuff. And it's quite a badly made film as well. It's really badly edited. It's like they didn't get enough footage. I mean, characters go from sitting to standing with a shot change. There's a chase scene which triggers some fast music, but then it lasts 20 seconds. I mean, maybe that was a joke, but it just seemed to me like they didn't have enough footage. And there's also a car accident which is really scrappily done, in which a car goes from moving to station. There's not enough coverage.
No, it just felt a bit amateurish in the way it was kind of pasted together.
Yeah, really.
One scene that did crack a smile is with Nigel Planner and Keith Allen as the drug smugglers, with Nigel Planner dressed up as a woman, and Keith and him having a go at Keith Allen about wearing stockings and and you shouldn't be wearing them to because you're going to arouse him. That was actually quite funny. It's just a shame that most of the screen time is hogged up with Richardson, Edmondson, and Saunders, which is just gag-free, dull, inane dialogue.
Yeah, really. The gag you talked about with him sort of getting turned on by his compadre wearing stockings. I mean, it was reasonably well done, but the gags are so dated because what the humour amounted to is like, isn't it funny that one's gay and one's a transvestite?
But at least it was a gag. At least it was a gag. There was hardly any gags in this film.
No, but the whole thing's like, look, one's gay, one's a transvestite. Isn't that funny? Haha, Adrian Edmondson's character has never had sex before. Isn't that funny? And then
how many times does he masturbate?
Yeah.
I mean, really, a really child-like kind of sort of stuff you'd titter at if you were really young.
Yeah, and then Robbie Coltrane's the woman who runs the hotel he's staying in is like some spinster woman who wants to get laid. And
Play my violin.
Yeah, it's just rubbish.
I mean, there is one good shot. There's one good shot in this movie, and that's with Robbie Coltrane when he's walking through the waves that are the spit of the waves is covering, accompanied to Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Two Tribes Go to War. It's a completely pointless scene, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw a lot of that online because I was looking online to see what people thought about this, and there is a lot of love for this, and that's something that I just do not understand.
The IMDb, I don't think hardly anyone gives it below an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, it is. That's something I don't get because when it finished, I was so confident that it was never good at any point. But I found a review on Amazon, a really well argued, articulate review, where the guy says, "I don't understand why this isn't held in the same regard as With None Alive."
Oh, shut up!
Yeah, really. I was just like, okay, you've lost me there, mate. I'm sorry.
That's fucking outrageous.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's because it's so light on jokes. There's just not many jokes.
Well, I read a review when a guy was going deep into it, going, I've watched this. You could watch this film 30 times and still not get whether Adrian Edmondson's character is he in on it or is he not in on it.
That's never in question.
I think you need to be seeking medication if you've watched this film 30 times.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's a 45-minute TV episode that probably wasn't great in the first place. Elongated out. Hardly anything happens. It's quite boring. I mean, even in a chopped down form. It would actually be easier to view it as some kind of drama rather than a comedy. If
I was to ask you in 2 months' time what this film is about, I think it'd be.
I have no doubt by the end of the weekend I probably won't know.
Exactly. There's just nothing. There's nothing that sticks.
No, they don't go out on a limb with anything either. It's like I don't really get how anyone had the gumption or the enthusiasm to make it in the first place. It kind of reeks of something that was made because everyone's contractually obliged to do it.
It's funny that Rick Mel is not in it.
Oh, of course, I didn't even notice that. Of course he is.
And it's just weird that this is the film that this got the feature film release.
Yeah, and also it was released in the United States and made a grand total of $1,818. I can't believe anyone saw this and thought it would do well in America. They must have heard about the success of the comic strip and thought, okay, there's a film out, it's done okay. I assume it did okay here because of the names attached to it, but the fact that it opened in cinemas in America is completely fucking baffling. That's completely bizarre. Yeah, the plot is barely existent and it doesn't go anywhere. There's hardly any jokes and it just drags.
Some nice aerial shots of the Cornish coast.
I suppose so.
I mean, I'm really... There's nothing to lift this from the shit that it's kind of way down in, because it is shit. There is no point in seeking
the
this.
central conceit isn't overtly funny anyway.
No, there's no gags.
No,
For a comic strip presents is 1 hour, 90 minutes long. I cracked a smile at one scene. that is a slog of a film to get through.
Yeah, I didn't even get that from it. I found it hard. I felt about as invested in it as everyone in it because there's no energy. It's really low energy. It's a nothing.
It's interesting seeing how flat. And I get he's meant to be like the cold-faced cop, but he didn't look like he wanted to be there. Richardson,
which is weird because I think he definitely directed it and he wrote it as well. I think. Yeah,
that's odd.
Yeah, it's not. It's a really weird.
Do you think it's a tax write-off?
Well, it seems like they were doing it for reasons other than wanting.
Because his performance is so kind of like non-committal.
Yeah, it is an odd film. I mean, it's odd and it's bad. It's just I can't see from any perspective what's good about this as a film. A mystery to me. I didn't enjoy it one bit really.
No.
Okay, so
on to the next one.
Yeah, screw that.
So. Up next, from 1988, Mr. Jolly Lives Next Door. A couple of alcoholic owners of an escort agency suddenly find themselves tangled up with a murderer, a hit gang, and Nicholas Parsons.
I said faster! Oh my God! Get me out of here! Get me out of here quick before I shit my pants! Too late! Get me out of here! Oh God! Oh God! Oh God!
Right, okay, so Mr. Jolly Lives Next Door. Had you seen it before? Had you heard of it?
No, never heard of it, never seen it. It was suggested to us on Twitter, as you said, and I'd heard of it. I saw that it was accompanied by, I think, a picture of Adrian Ibsen and Rick Mail. So I hadn't heard of it. When I pointed this out to you, or when you'd seen it, you were immediately sceptical. And as we were both fans of Bottom, I was surprised that you were immediately like, I bet it's terrible. Why were you sceptical straight away?
I was sceptical because alarm bells were ringing that I'd never heard of it.
Yeah, right.
I thought, I've never heard of this. I've even heard of the stuff that didn't work too well when they paired up together, Filthy Rich and Cat Flap, which wasn't very good. So I thought, this is surely going to be really bad because it's been forgotten in the depths of the 80s.
Yeah.
I was actually really surprised by it.
Really?
I mean, this compared to the Supergrass, this had gags.
Yeah,
this had gags that work. It's directed by Stephen Frears, who went on to do some really great things. The Grifters, High Fidelity, and The Queen. So, Richard and Eddie, the early years.
Yeah, right.
What did you think?
I liked it more than I expected, but I didn't love it or anything like that. It's still so dated by the fact that it's just supposed to be funny that they're alcoholics and there's cross-dressing again, that someone's wearing a dress. OTT doesn't even cover it. I mean, it's so ridiculously over the top and it's so loud. One thing I thought was interesting is that when you go back and look at the young ones where this lot essentially formed, television in that era was still relatively restrained, relatively sort of quiet. And there's a joke in the young ones that one of them doesn't shout, and it's just relentless shouting. If you look at an episode of the young ones, it's just people yelling, and this is very similar. Everyone's just shouting constantly, and back then that must have seemed like the...
Yeah, I think the scenes in the young ones where it was shouting was just when it was like Rick Mail and Adrian Ibsen.
But they were basically the main characters, weren't they?
Yeah, but if you rewatch, I mean, I've got they've not dated very well, the young ones, but there's some really good stuff in old young ones episodes.
But even now, comparing it to other television at the time, you can see how it must have felt completely fresh and original. That people would just
it's an anarchic comedy. I mean, Adrian Ibsen is very shouty as Vivian, and him and Rick would just shout at one another.
Yeah. And this is kind of similar. It's so loud, and that I found that a little bit wearing. Yeah. Whereas I can appreciate back then, it felt like
what would have been nice. What they did very well in the young ones actually is when they did the kind of left field stuff where they'd focus on like a plate of vegetables, and one of the characters would put his plate down like a carrot, and then it would zoom down into a relationship between the carrot and the potato. Could you ever love a cripple? All that kind of stuff, which is quite funny, but it hasn't dated very well at all. At the time, it was obviously very political, and Ben Elton. It is really shouty, this film. I mean, there is a scene in the toilets where all they are doing, you can't hear what they're saying at one another. They're just shouting and shouting and shouting. Then they fall over in a load of piss by the urinals. Yeah. It does get to those heady points of just like, well, I can't. This is like two hyperactive school children who've just been given all the fucking toys in the box to play.
And again, I can see how vastly different that was, and that had an appeal back in the day. But this started to just wear me down a little bit. There's little morsels, little small bits, the odd line, the odd sight gag. I mean, there was some really funny slapstick. The diving out of the window was funny.
The window. I mean, it is very much like there's gags that have been rehashed and done in Bottom. With the window coming down on the fingers. I thought the concept itself was actually quite a funny concept. The fact that you've got these two alcoholic escort owning guys who run the escort agencies called
Dreamy Time Escorts.
Dreamy Time Escorts. Guaranteed to... What was their tagline?
I can't remember.
Always a good finish? I
can't remember.
They go all the way.
Oh, right. Sounds right, yeah.
And what they basically do is they lure businessmen who think they're getting a sexual service, and they turn up to their hotel and then basically go take them out drinking all day.
Yeah.
That's actually quite funny, and when it's kind of condensed into that montage where Adrian is going Winston Churchill and who's that, Dick Turpin and everything, and take them to the pubs and that's actually quite funny.
Yeah.
When they go to the hotel, they pick up the Japanese guy, and they basically just keep taking money out of his wallet. They keep taking till they go to a late night, which is such a weird themed bar. It's like all the women are dressed as white squalls.
Yeah, right.
And they spend £3,000 that night on gin.
Yeah.
And then they go out to take the guy home, and then basically there's just this prolonged scene that lingers on the Japanese businessman, the elderly Japanese businessman, just bawling his eyes out at the wheel of the car, which is kind of how I felt I was going to feel if the tone of the loudness and shoutiness of the first 5 minutes of the film was going to be sustained.
The beginning is really tough.
The beginning is tough to get through because they are yelling all of their lines of dialogue.
Yeah, no doubt.
There were little looks from characters that really had me laugh. The Japanese businessman crying in the car, I was really laughing at. I thought that was really funny. The way that they drive into the pedestrian who's waiting outside of the Holistic Hotel before they go and pick him up, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
The stuff they tried too hard at, that's the stuff that kind of just went over my head and I didn't find that funny.
Yeah, it was more the stuff that was sort of, well directed. So the anything involving the window, really. The first murder with them on the other side of the glass, I thought that was well done. And there's
Peter Cook's great in it.
It's a shame he's not in it more. I thought he was one of the main characters.
Peter Cook is brilliant at it. Just the fact that he plays a mass murderer who butchers his victims and accompanied by Tom Jones hits.
Yeah,
I mean, that's brilliant.
Yeah, and I like the line "another French bastard." That was a funny joke. But yeah, it's so hard to judge it fairly because comedy advances so quickly, and the anarchic stuff. Actually, I noticed a joke in this, which I saw in The Simpsons, where that kindly old couple run off the road and then their car just explodes.
Oh no, that made with Dawn French was the passenger.
Yeah.
That made me laugh.
But that literal joke when Hans Moleman, I just made my last payment. It's exactly that joke. So
the composition of that scene was making me laugh from the off because he's just got this constant this smug shit-eating grin with Dawn French going, "Oh, we're so happy to go and see Nicholas Parsons." I was giggling throughout that whole scene, and it culminates obviously the car blowing up. I was like, that was a great little scene.
But the setup is classic farce, whereas the Supergrass is not. I don't even know what that is. This is recognisably a comedy from all angles. There were moments where I was as baffled by it as I am by stuff like the Carry On films, but there were laughs in it, and I think that it was clearly directed by a guy who was going places. Because the murders in particular, I thought they were really well done. But there's so much yelling. I just wish it wasn't so shouty.
There was what I found quite funny. You look at Richardson's character in the Supergrass, which is kind of just non-existent compared to how he plays this. He plays the leader of a white leisure suit wearing leader of a hit gang who is absolutely in love with his car that keeps getting dented and he's crying at the side of it. Yeah. He's a brilliant comedy character. I love it when he goes to take him out. And they went, well, we did take him out. We took him out to dinner. They went take him right out. And he goes, what? To Dorking? That's brilliant. Really funny. Yeah. I mean, the hit gang. I mean, it is quite true. The hit gang. The fact that it's like what you'd imagine a 10-year-old's interpretation of what a hit gang would do. Yeah, right. £3,000 in an envelope with "You must kill Nicholas Parsons."
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's really childlike. It's completely unsophisticated, and like the young ones, it hasn't aged very well. But it is interesting to see the kind of the development of where Rick Mayall and Ade Edmondson would be 10 years later when playing their characters in Bottom, which is them honing those two characters to the best of their abilities. Bottom is great. And it zipped by really quickly. It kind of ended. I was like, oh, that felt a really nice, concise, 45, 50, punchy 50 minutes.
I think that we should point out that this isn't actually a film. It wasn't theatrically released. They always describe the comic strip episodes as films, but it's only a 45-minute sort of TV episode. But
there is stuff in there that's good. It's not a great film by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly for Ade Edmondson, Rick Mayall purists, search it out.
I wouldn't say I liked it because there was too much that either baffled me or that I just found obnoxious. But it was
passable. It was passable fare, and it was a hell of a lot fucking better than the Supergrass.
Did it inspire you? Do you want to go and look at more comic strip stuff?
Not really, no.
No, that's where I am.
My feeling is they're all going to come off as a bit dated and very of their time, with the occasional gag that lands. But to sit through something 45, 50 minutes and they are. What's good about Mr. Jolly is that they're trying gags all the time.
Yeah.
It's kind of relentless, and 1 in every 10 maybe hit.
Yeah, that's in comparison to the Supergrass anyway. It's clearly the superior comedy, if only because it tries to make jokes.
And it's directed. It's properly directed.
Yeah, that's true. My feelings were. There were stretches of it where I was just like, I don't get this, and I don't get why it was ever funny. And I felt the same about the Supergrass. But when it was just being relentlessly puerile and stupid, I thought, you can't really argue with that. Either you find it funny or you don't. I think it has dated very, very badly, but at least I can definitely see the appeal of.
Yeah, I can see people who are fans of Ade Edmondson and Rick Mayall getting a lot from seeing what basically Richard and Eddie, the early years, is like.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, if you don't enjoy over-the-top comedy and shouting, I'd swerve it. But yeah, there are...
There's some good slapstick comedy in there, and there's a couple of nice moments. There's a couple of isolated scenes that are done well, that made me laugh.
Yeah. It's streets ahead of the Supergrass anyway. I know that.
Night and day.
Yeah.
Night and day. This, some of it was hard to sit through, but it rattled through at a good pace, and it was a well put together film.
Yeah. I agree with that. Okay, all right, well, so the winner's Mr. Jolly Lives Next Door.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, that's us done. Thank you very much for listening. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all of that stuff. We're also on iTunes. Subscribe to us on iTunes and Facebook and YouTube if you enjoy this. It helps us out, so we'd appreciate that. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. See you again.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Cult film Face Off.
Hi, my name is Harrison Ford. I play a guy who's in love with himself.
My name's Keith Allen, and I'm playing the part of Trevor Mushroom in this film, a mystic garden gnome.
My name's Nigel Planer, and I'm playing the part, as you can see, of a Glaswegian drug smuggler.
I'm playing a lovely character called Leslie. It's a very sympathetic character, full of emotion.
Hello. My name is... Oh, God, I had it this morning. Anyway, I play a super character. I've almost read the whole script now, and it's a wonderful play. I haven't read the whole script, but apparently I am a Supergrass, yes. I've only done this one pub scene so far, and it's gone pretty well, I think.